Now this blaster we're going to be building is one of the background blasters that was in the Razer in the Mandalorian. It was in his cabinet when he opened it up and started looking around. Oh, oh. Okay, so now we can start actually putting this guy together. Now as you can see, I always kind of lay out my pieces where they're going to go, so it's a lot easier to know where everything's going as I'm putting it together. I'm also going to be using my handy dandy Gorilla Glue. And as always, make sure you shake this stuff up good. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with the grips. And the grips are separate pieces. This makes it easier for painting. So if you want to paint the grips more of a wood grain, it's easier. You can paint it and then glue it on. Now I'm just going to be assembling this today, so I'm just going to go ahead and put them together. Now you don't want to use too much of the glue or else it'll take a long time to dry. You just want to give it a nice quick little coating. And then as I'm sticking it together, I'm using my fingers around all the edges to make sure everything stays lined up. Also, a lot of times I'll use this stuff. If it'll focus on it. It's Instaset. It'll help set super glue instantly. So this can come in handy too. And we're a little hot out here in the garage today, so it may take a little bit longer. I'm going to go ahead and grab the other side. Line those up. Now let's put those off to the side here for a second so they can finish setting. We can go ahead and start working on some of the parts for the slide itself. Now this is the main slide, and it has a couple greebles that go on it. They go on the side here and on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of those on. Now on the right side of the slide, you're going to use the smaller greeble. There's two greebles. There's a big one and a small one. The smaller one goes on the right hand side. And then these little pieces here kind of help you to know where to put it, because you want to kind of line those up like that. And I'll show you a little better once it actually gets glued in. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple drops on this. I'm going to line it up with the end here so it's nice and flush. And it's sticking to my finger, of course, more than the gun. Just making sure it's nice and flat and parallel with the end there. So you can see how that kind of lines up with everything right there. And then I'm going to use the greeble, and it's just going to go and just barely touch it there. So I'll go ahead and put some glue on here. Line that up. Let that sit like that. And then these parts go on the back end, facing towards the rear. So a couple drops. Get that on there. And these are sticking nice and fast. There we go. So you end up with something like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. Same way. Take the end that's angled. That's the one you want, matching the angle on the end of the gun. Couple drops. Line it up. Remember, you must make sound effects while you work or you will go nuts. And I have no fingerprints left from all this super glue. Just need something to help it stand up. And then the bigger one goes on this side the same way. And then that piece facing backwards. Right on towards the back. And I want to make sure it's pretty much lined up with the other side. That looks pretty even. So you get something like that. So now we have the slide assembled. Let's go ahead and take a look at the scope here. Now the scope has a couple of parts. You have the scope retainer. Then you have this little part that slides in there. And then the scope itself goes in to the top slide part. So I'm actually going to glue this part in. I'm going to push that in nice and tight, glue that guy in. And then I can slide this part on. So we get something like that. Ha, ha, ha. And then for the scope itself, you have the scope and the scope end. Now the parts with the lines are the end of the scope, so I want to slide the other end through. And then this part actually just clips on, so I can push that on. Actually, I can go ahead and push it on this way. There we go. Ugh. Yeah. So you get something like that. And it slides in. And I'm going to put a couple drops of glue on here to make sure everything locks in place. Slide it in. That's a little crooked because of this piece. I didn't slide it in right. I'll make sure I get the grooves right so it's flat. And then push it back on. There we go. So that's how you get the top part with the scope. So now we can kind of start working on some of the other parts here. And let's see here. Actually, probably go ahead. Yeah, oop, that one's not quite dry yet. But it's getting there, it's good enough. So the handle basically glues on like this with the groove. So it fits in there nice and snug. I'm gonna go ahead and add some glue here. Line that up. And in the name of speeding stuff up a little bit, give her a little squirt. Ha ha ha. There we go. So now we're starting to get somewhere, aren't we? So now we can go ahead and actually start lining all this stuff up. So we're going to have this guy basically on like that. Then this guy goes up front. And then the barrel. So let's go ahead and start assembling this. Put some glue. Da, 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 da. Get this guy on here. Make sure it's lined up. We can go ahead and do this one. Stay. Put that on there, and I want to make sure it's centered. Actually, I can probably put some glue on the end here too, just to give it a little bit more bite. Since it's going to be flush against that as well. So we get something kind of like that. Now we have the little front scope. Actually, it goes this way. So I'm just going to add a couple drops of glue up there. Do 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 do. A do 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 do. And we're making progress. Oh. Now these long pieces are the greebles for the side of the gun, if I can pick one up here. And they go along the long side here. And basically you just want to make sure that the very end one is pointing down. That way you know right from left. And what I mean by that is this very end one here. If you grab the other one and try to put it on this side, it would be pointed up. That way you know which side is which. They both should be pointed down. So add a little glue. Do, 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 do. Try to add a little glue. Do, 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 do. Do the same thing on the other side. Do, 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 do. Make sure they're even. And straight. And there you go. So now pretty much all we have left are the dials, the trigger, and the front barrel. So the trigger basically just glues on underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these guys together first. Now you may get one of these with this already as one piece, because I don't think that these really need to be separated for printing. So I'll probably have these as one piece. But either way, it's easy just to glue the two together. Now I'm going to glue this whole thing underneath there. Slap it on up under there. Maybe give it a quick squirt. Burp, burp. Speed things up a little bit. And then next we're going to do the barrel. So I'm just going to put some glue in here. Also going to put some on here itself. Now don't mind my fancy orange tip. That's for Itsy so they don't yell at me for selling real guns. And this guy just kind of goes on here. Come on. Uh-oh. This is definitely going to need a squirt. There we go. I know it's just kind of slid a little bit. That's because it's still just on that track. If you want to make it solid, which I would recommend, just slide it off the track, put a little glue in there. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. I'll put a couple drops of glue in the track here. And then just slide it into that glue a little bit. Spread that glue around. And that'll lock that into place right there. Now all we have to do is put on our button here. And then the round part goes on the back. And this one can go on the top. Actually, let's go ahead and do it. And there you go. Ha ha ha. And there's our build. Cool, cool.